welcome to Sonoran Sky, our podcast of the First Alert Weather Department here at Arizona's Family. I'm meteorologist April Warnecke, and joining me today, meteorologist Ian Schwartz. Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I had this idea for a podcast. Weather misconceptions. Things that maybe we wish people knew about the weather, things maybe we can't say. And I thought you'd be the perfect person to talk to about this because, frankly, you don't hold back.
I don't have a filter.
So our goal is not to get fired here today, but to maybe say some things that we think sometimes when it comes to weather and maybe what people think, what viewers think. Versus reality. These are things people say to us on the street, or a lot of times things people email us about or say on social media, whether that's to us on our First Alert Facebook or just that we happen to see on social media.
We watch.
And so, these thoughts that we have are things that I just wish people knew about the weather. So it's a kind of vague topic, but I have some thoughts here. So.
And there's some good ones. It's not just a complaint session. I think it's actually good info from folks who aren't surrounded in it every day like us.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think I have to remember is that we're doing this every day. It's,
exactly.
It's our main thing. So the first thing I think is that there's uncertainty when it comes to the weather.
Yes.
That it's a forecast, which doesn't mean just a guess, but, you have Arizona, you have microclimates, you have monsoon dynamics, you have, just the atmosphere in general is chaotic. And if people think that we're going to be able to tell you that it's going to rain on Tuesday at 3 p.m. in this certain neighborhood, that's very rare. Now, it is possible sometimes, and that might be a wintertime, a cold front that's coming through.
Much easier.
And we're able to say, you know what, that's going to move through in the early afternoon hours, first in this part of town. But most of the time, that's not the case, especially with monsoon storms here. And people expect that, and then they say, you're just wrong 90% of the time. Must be nice to have a job, or you can be wrong and still get paid. And the thing is, we're not wrong. It's just there's uncertainty, and part of our job is to communicate that uncertainty. So I find myself wondering, do we do a good enough job communicating the uncertainty in these different situations?
It's tough. I think we do. We also have a finite amount of time to explain what can be very complicated processes.
Yes.
To use, that's like a fancy way to say process, I think. Processes. Especially when it comes to the monsoon.
Yes.
We know we have all the ingredients. We have heat. We have moisture. We hopefully have a low pressure system that's kind of maybe coming out of Mexico. But some of the high resolution models, which are kind of the real in tune ones, they'll put the storms down, but they really can't say exactly where they're going to form.
And sometimes the timing can be off on those models. Like I
Big
know
time.
What's really nice about having both Ian and I on the same shift in the morning is we talk a lot about these. And it hasn't always been the case. Like you've worked by yourself a long time and I've worked by myself a long time. But now that we're kind of in this team environment, it's nice because we can look at these models and say, wow, like 3 different models. And one of them saying morning, one of them saying night, one of them is saying all day long. Another model might be saying no rain at all. Right. And then it's really up to us to say, well, which model's been performing the best lately, or what do we think? What's, based on our knowledge of doing this for 20, 25 years, it is nice to kind of, confer with each other and try to figure that out. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like it's not possible to say, this is the time, this is the place. We have to just go with we're 80%, 80% chance this part of town.
It is a guess. It's an educated guess.
Yes, we do put time into making that guess.
Time goes into it, especially when it comes to outflow boundaries. And we love and hate them.
Yes.
And you've probably heard of talk about those before. So basically, kind of a quick explainer would be, you have a big thunderstorm down by Casa Grande or Gila Bend. Storm's growing, gets 60,000 feet in the air. It kind of collapses, and then you have a tremendous amount of cold, heavy air rushing out of that thunderstorm. And it's like a little mini cold front.
Yep.
And that's the outflow boundary. It is the outflow out of the storm. It's a boundary, a difference between warm air and cold air. We call those boundaries. And then at the same time, you'll have that up by Cave Creek or to the northeast, something maybe hopped off the rim. And so we're waiting, and we're both of us, we're watching these at like 7 p.m. as we're getting ready for bed.
Texting each other.
Texting. Do you see this outflow? And so the forecast model has to, one, say, okay, I think there's going to be a storm down by Casa Grande. I think there's going to be one to the north. And we think there's going to be cold air rushing out of them, as happens in a thunderstorm, and to try to predict, one, are they going to have enough steam to collide and hit each other, and where exactly will that happen is very hard to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes they gas out and they don't have enough strength once they make it in the valley, and they just get that dust and that wind. But then sometimes they meet right overhead, and then those two, dense pieces of cold air, when they hit, they go right up and then create a storm.
And outflow benders aren't even the easiest thing to see and to track. And so it's even tough to, even when they're happening, sometimes you can get the radar to pick up on that. And then you can kind of see it happening, but there's not really a way to predict unless you say it's going to be an active day up on the rim and to our south. So that makes it more likely.
So many.
And that would be a day when you'd hear us say maybe 80% chance of storms. But another misperception, I think, is if we say a 10 to 20% chance, like, well, we've got the ingredients, but we're not thinking that it's as likely, but still could happen. And if it pours at someone's house, they will say, so much for that 10% chance. Like, well, no, there's a 10% chance of that happening. 10% chance does not mean
light rain
or some sprinkles. It means there could still be a big storm. It's just the certainty isn't there. So I hope we're doing a good enough job, communicating that. But
coverage.
This might lead us into our next topic, which is apps, because I think that my goal as a meteorologist at this point is to be better than an app, and that's not to put down apps because we have our First Alert weather app,
right?
But I think that what we can do in our jobs is add context, and I think when people look at an app and they see rain at this time and done an hour later, they take that to mean that's what's going to happen, and this is wrong, and this app is wrong. But that app isn't communicating to you the uncertainty of that happening. And so I think that's what I tried to do.
A lot of people use the Apple app, whatever's embedded on their phone. I've tried to research where
they're getting that,
where they're getting it. I have no idea. I haven't found a great answer
recently. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's proprietary. They just don't want anyone to know that. I don't think it's like a conspiracy or anything. But we will look at several different models. You have GFS, NAM, Euro, and we could tell you exactly where we got our data and how we kind of put something together. I don't know. I don't want to badmouth them too much. I mean, they're wrong sometimes. Sometimes they're right, but I don't know how they're really piecing that together. So I will often hear, well, my app says this or my app says that. I'm like, I don't know. I can just tell you what we're doing.
And then also, how far out are they looking at that app? So if it's Monday and you're looking at something for the following weekend, I hope you're checking back on that app Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes, a lot can change.
Whether that's the Apple weather app or any other of your favorite, weather apps, it is going to change as you get closer to that time. And so you've really got to be checking. And I don't know that an app is going to say, hey, this new model just came in and this, you'd have to just notice, oh, that just changed.
Yes. That's why the First Alert weather app is good, because we go in there, us personally, and we're updating it.
Yeah.
The written forecast, that is updated at least twice, maybe even more.
Yeah.
So that's great to have, because you can get the context from your local meteorologist. Most of us who've lived here for many, many, many years. And so that is a good one. But I really don't recommend a lot of apps other than that one, because I know what goes into it.
I always say apps are great for tracking rain, like looking at radar, live radar.
Sure.
If you've got a good app that does that, our First Alert weather app, one of my favorite things about that is the lightning tracker.
Oh, that's
my
huge.
kids all have that on their phone, because it immediately will let them know if they're at a practice. Hey, lightning is 5 miles away.
5 miles, 10 miles.
It tracks where you are, and it'll tell you when lightning is. So that's what I think apps are best for. And then again, like our First Alert weather app, you can get the articles and the watches and the warnings and all of that. But in terms of, giving you the context of that, if someone asked me where's the best place to look for an app for a forecast in some city across the country, I say go to the National Weather Service website for that place, because they've got a team of meteorologists who live there with local knowledge, and then see what they're saying, and then check too as you get closer to your trip.
Yeah. As far as radar, people, what do you use for radar? We all use Radar Scope. I think it's like $10 a year or something. It is a pay app, but most likely any meteorologist that you're following on social media or watch on traditional broadcasts is using Radar Scope. Has probably more bells and whistles than you would ever need.
Yeah, because our First Alert app does have radar, but it's not detailed enough that you're going to see outflow boundaries. So if you're really
if you
wanting to see all
up
of that,
the game,
velocity, then you're going to want to do that. Which Royal and I were texting a while back about a microburst that hit my neighborhood. He's like, look at the velocity. You can see that microburst that just moved through. So
it's like, whoa.
Then you probably need to pay for an upgraded app. But again, even as meteorologists, we're just using it for radar. We're not using it for
forecasting. Exactly.
So.
All right, what's the next
over.
complaint?
What else do we want to
wait, this isn't a complaint.
I'm
just
kidding.
It's
misperceptions. Okay, well, that kind of ties into things changed. 10-day forecast is going to change when people ask you about their wedding 2 months from now. You have to kind of say,
be able to accommodate that request.
We don't do a 10-day forecast. We could, but you should know that anything beyond about 5 to 7 days is just based on a trend.
For sure. And we can tell you climatologically what is expected on average for that wedding date. Like, here's the average high. Here's the worst of it. Here's the record. Here was what it was, the hottest. This is what potentially could be, or the rain or stuff like that. But we do get those requests sometimes. Hey, I'm getting married in a year. What do you think the weather will be like? It's like, I think your wedding will probably look a lot different from what you're planning now from a year.
I got married in early December because I was looking at, it's a nice time of year. Typically, we had a cold front come through. It was windy and freezing. It didn't rain, but it was windy and freezing. I also planned it around a full moon, though, with the mountain there. So it's more kind of based on that.
Que romantico.
But even with that, it's like you can't predict what storm is going to happen. You can just look at that time of year. Okay, when we were brainstorming for this, you had a little rant about rain records, your house versus the airport. So kind of break that down.
Yeah, well, so the important thing about records is consistency. That's why, and people say, well, they're all at the airport.
Yes.
And people are like, well, why?
Nobody lives at the airport.
I hear that a lot. Nobody lives at the airport. Well, when the Weather Service was established, one of the main things was air travel and what are air travel conditions like. And so that's why a lot of your Weather Service records or observations are at the airport. Like, that's where a lot of the sensors were because it was so important for air travel. So all of our records have been kept at Sky Harbor. It's moved around a couple of times. But
all within the airport area.
All within the airport area to keep that consistency. Or Falcon Field, records from Mesa will be there. Or Deer Valley, records have been kept there. So that's where the official records are kept. I had a guy message me the other day, and he said, I posted monsoon totals. He said, well, where did you get this info? At my house, it was 3 inches. We had so much more. And it's like, well, two things are happening there. The monsoon is highly variable. So you could have some area that got 4 inches, and you could literally drive a mile, and there was maybe a half of an inch. So the variability of the monsoon, and then the records that the Weather Service keeps, all the data measurements are the same. They have, I think it's 10-meter wind. All the rain buckets, I think they're digital now. It's very uniform and very scientific. If you had a rain gauge, that was under a gutter, and I've seen that. I think Royal and I saw that recently. That's not going to be
9 inches of rain.
That's right. Wow, 2 feet of rain this year. Amazing. That's not going to be an accurate reading, or the temperature reading. If it's hidden or in a super sunny area, or it's next to rocks where there's radiant heat, those aren't going to be accurate readings. And the Weather Service, they're not going to go to each person's house and make sure that that's done. So you may have had something at your house, but that's not going to be the official record on tap. Now, we love the readings. Keep them coming, and we love the pictures, and we love home weather stations and weather watchers. It's amazing because we can get info from that, which is great.
You mentioned the variability. I mean, there's a huge difference sometimes between the West Valley and the East Valley. So we know, some of you don't care about what happens at the airport, but we always report the differences as well. It's just that official measurement has got to come from somewhere, and that's pretty centrally located as the valley's kind of grown out from both ways. Kind of on the same topic of that, car thermometer, the car temperature gauges.
This one.
They're not accurate.
They're not accurate.
Close.
When they are moving. So once you get the car going and you're kind of in the ambient temperature.
Out of your hot garage for a while.
Out of the hot garage, then they can be pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It will not be an official reading,
Yeah.
but sometimes we get the ones where the car has been baking.
Yeah.
Like it's 160 degrees in Mesa. I'm like, well, I don't know how well people would be doing in Mesa with that type of temperature. So car thermometer is good, but make sure the car has been moving a little bit instead of just baking in the garage or the driveway.
Yes.
We get a lot of those pictures on the
we do.
weather page.
100, I will say the high was maybe 118. Well, it was 125. Well, no, probably not. It could have been a little warmer in your part of town, but probably not that much warmer.
Probably not that much.
Yeah. All right, so on the same topic of things we wish we could tell you, and I think people know this, but I'd love to reinforce it. If it's not raining, you can't be struck by lightning. Lightning can strike 10 miles from a storm. A lot of people, I think, may go outside a little too early after a storm, and, we've been seeing some of these lightning deaths this year.
Bad. And
Hunters,
hunters.
People, you're out camping, and you think that the storm has ended, but lightning is more dangerous than you think.
Yeah, and even if you survive, it's not pleasant.
No.
PTSD, ringing in your ears. Lightning strike survivors will have like major problems with sleep. It's a lot of kind of post-strike problems. I think you probably interviewed people. I've interviewed lightning strike victims, and it's like it's not a cool story.
No.
Like afterward, there's a whole lot of kind of health problems because you're basically like frying your internal wiring.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, it reboots. A lot of lightning strike deaths, people they have breathing issues because you're like resetting the whole system with this tremendous amount of electricity that kind of goes through your body. So. Yeah, take that seriously.
I wish people took it more seriously and don't get under trees. A lot of people still think
Right.
that's the great place to be. It's not. It's about the worst place you could be.
Lying flat
better.
is it sounds weird because you're like, wait, you want me to just like stay out here? If you have nowhere to go, you are to lie as flat as possible.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be next to anything that's going up.
Nope, but people still do it. So
they do it for sure.
Watches versus warnings. I think that I wish people had a better grasp on that, and maybe that's a mission of ours to educate people a little more and remind them. I think with a lot of the flooding that we have seen, not just in Arizona but across the country. We were in Texas during those floods that happened in July. And there was a lot of talk about, were people just kind of wary from all of the flood alerts, flood watches, flood warnings.
Yeah.
When you're, near area with a river, do they get just thinking they're all the same? Do people know the difference? And so in Arizona, we will have a flood watch when there's a lot of moisture and a high likelihood that the storms are going to bring heavy rainfall. And that'll be something for maybe a 24-hour period or a 12-hour period. And then you get a flood warning, and that's for a smaller area, certain community or an area near a wash. And a flood warning, if you get that on your phone, that's going to be for a shorter amount of time, usually an hour or 2 hours.
Right.
And that means flooding is happening and it's imminent. It's time to take action. So if you've been getting flood watches popping up on your phone all day, and then all of a sudden you get a warning, it's important to know the difference.
Yes,
it's very different.
It's kind of leveled up quite a bit. A great example, last week, I was at the State Fair heading to the Format concert.
Oh, yeah.
And that cell kind of started, eventually kind of toward your house. It went north and caused, problems. But people's phones started going off. And they said, it's a flash flood warning. What's going on? So staying calm is the most important thing. And then just kind of knowing your surroundings. If you're in your house, in most cases, water's not going to be, slamming through the doors. But what I wouldn't do if I was in a car, that's when I'd be really, really cautious.
Yeah.
Wondering, okay, somewhere around here, and usually if you click on it, it'll give you more detail of the warning, because sometimes there'll be, big, large polygons that, affects everything. We weren't really terribly at risk because the storm, we were on the tail south side of that warning. And so I was with some friends. I said, no. They said, well, what's this flash flood warning? I'm glad they were, curious and alert. I said, no, we're good here. There's no issues, right where we are. But likely the storm that's kind of grown up a bit, it's, creating some flash flood conditions. So I think especially because the majority of flooding deaths anywhere in the nation are in the car. I think it's 40 to 60. I don't have the number right in front of me. But a huge percentage, especially at night, you come around a corner of your normal street and maybe there's no flooding where you are. Well, you turn the corner, all of a sudden there's a river and you just need a little, the front, left quadrant of that car to nose into that, and then it'll just sweep you right away. Yeah. So especially heed that warning when you're in a car and kind of figure out where you are, read the detail on that warning, and of course, never, ever, ever, ever drive through a flooded road, wash, or creek.
Yeah, and I think if there is a flood watch issued for your area, you should be staying very aware that those warnings could come, and you need to be watching for those.
Yeah, I would not, if I live in a mountain community, I wouldn't be driving down dark mountain roads. Probably at night if I knew, if there was a flood watch and these storms start firing, because it's very hard to tell where this water is going to come from, and it can literally come out of nowhere sometimes.
Yep. All right, what else have we got here on our list here?
We're not rich.
We're not. Okay. So you want to talk about misconceptions of our job?
Yes.
How about that? That was a whole other category.
That was the whole thing.
We don't. Well, you mentioned that we're not rich. Do people think that? I don't know.
No, I mean, I think even though TV's been around for 75, 80 years, I think people, because there are rich people on TV, movie stars.
Yes.
And,
okay. Gotcha.
And whatever. I don't know. Soap opera people make a lot of money, but there's people who are on TV that make a lot of money, and then maybe by default, people think TV make more than we do. I don't know.
I have had that question a lot when I talk to school kids in classrooms. Some kids going to raise their hand and say, are you rich? How much money do you make?
Let's see. My Honda has 120,000 miles on it, so no.
Honda too.
Yeah.
All right. So that tells you something there. Hondas are reliable.
Yeah,
and
that's for sure. Very good vehicles.
Okay. We don't have hair people or makeup people.
No, we do that ourselves.
I think they do in New York.
Yeah. Looking at me like, oh, we know you don't eat it.
You had a makeup person.
No way. They should be fired if so. No, we do that. And even back in the day, the TV industry has changed, over the years.
Yeah.
20 years ago, maybe it was a bit more lucrative, not necessarily rich.
We did used to have a clothing allowance.
Yes, there were clothing allowances back in the day.
My clothing allowance, when I started in this business, it was $1,000 a year.
That's not bad.
But this was back when women also had to wear suits.
Oh,
and
yes.
So it bought you about 3-4 suits.
Yeah.
So that was
get you through the week.
But then you had to pay taxes on that.
Oh,
but it's not movie star money, but it's it was something.
True.
But all of that is gone. I don't think anybody really. I don't know. Maybe you do. You got a clothing allowance?
No, those are long.
I think
gone.
they're long
They used to
gone.
have haircut allowances. I don't think those really exist.
No.
Gym allowances. I don't know how much I would have used it anyway. No. We do our own makeup. I really don't even wear makeup anymore.
Not even powder.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the beauty of weather is it's a very wide shot.
You're kind of far away. Yeah.
Now, as an anchor, it's a tighter shot, and they're kind of zoomed in on your face more.
They're a little shinier. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's part of my appeal. I'm perfectly average.
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, we also don't have weather producers. We don't have anyone who's making our graphics.
No,
So,
it's all us.
Ian does our early shows 4:30 to 6, so you're getting it at 2. No, I'm kidding. But you're doing your own
midnight,
graphics.
Bosses.
But you're doing your own graphics.
Yes.
And, most of the time then we're putting in the closed captioning, and then we're writing a web article.
Yep.
We're taping things
Lots
for,
of taping.
Little cut-ins or our weather channel, our digital channel there.
Social media.
But we're doing that all ourselves.
Yeah, we're not, because, we hear this a lot. Oh, you're a meteorologist in Phoenix. That must be the easiest job in the world. It's actually harder when it's sunny and no storms.
Because you still have to fill 2 to 3 minutes.
Yes, you have to make it interesting. So when there's storms going, I'm not going to say it's easier, but there's definitely more content
I think it is,
for you. So it is harder when it's sunny and 90 for 7 days.
But you're still paid to be wrong 90% of the time.
That's right. So there is a lot that goes into it. We're not just, kicking back Ron Burgundy style.
Yeah.
And we don't just stroll in and someone's done all the work for us. So there's a lot kind of behind the scenes that goes into it. I think another maybe misconception that we know the weather everywhere in the world all the time. You
don't know what's happening in South Carolina tomorrow?
That's right, tomorrow. And why not? Well, I'm traveling to Minnesota this week. What's it going to be? So we'll probably, if you do ask us that and we get those requests, we're going to look them up. We don't immediately know. Yeah. We really focus on the state of Arizona.
And that brings me to another thing we were going to talk about is consultants, because some people do think someone tells us what to say. And, mostly people are talking about the news, which also is not true.
Right.
But with weather, nobody is telling us what to say.
Weather's become political in a sense lately.
Yeah,
and
nobody's pushing an agenda here.
No agendas. We don't have overseers.
No.
You're pushing this or that.
But we do have consultants, and
Right.
the consultants come in and tell us things like
Branding.
branding. They tell us things like people really want you to focus more on Arizona. They don't want the national weather so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe 5-10 years ago, you would have seen us do more national weather during the morning show. But consultants come in and they say, we've been looking at this minute by minute as people are watching the news,
Literally.
trying to get out the door in the morning, and they don't have time for that. They don't want that. They want this. They want to know what's next for today. They want to know how it affects their weekend. They really want you to spend more time on the 7-day. That's kind of the role that the consultants play around here and helping us just kind of hone in on what we should maybe spend a little more time or a little less time on.
For sure. I mean, any company is going to do that when it comes to their products. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Cracker Barrel has entered the chat. They probably did some research that, and I don't know the whole story, that a version of a consultant or a focus group or something that said, hey, maybe we need to do this and that. Now, maybe they didn't do the proper polling and they went too far, but brands, and at the end of the day, we're a business. We're here to sell newspapers, as they say. Also, do the things we do, keeping people's families safe and keeping them prepared. But there is going to be some of that stuff put under a microscope to try to figure out, the business is changing drastically. So what is next? What do people want? And how do we do our best to get it to them? So some of the stuff you see, and I go, why do they say that? Or I think this is hokey or this and that.
Yeah.
It's part of branding and, to try to make us stand out and all those things.
Yeah. I mean, we've got competition from, quite a few other stations in town, but you add into that, now we're competing with websites. Now we're competing with apps. Yeah. We're competing with social media, where people are getting their forecasts more. So we're trying to be on social media more and, devote more time to that and be in that space as well. So
speaking of getting your information from the internet.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
Choose good sources.
Right.
There's a lot of garbage. Like, it's wonderful that people have so much access to information, more than they ever had in the history of, mankind as we know it, humankind as we know it.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of bad info out there.
It's true. And a lot of it has a pretty huge following.
Huge following. Those people are also trying to sell newspapers.
It's true.
And there will be outlandish stuff that they say, whether it's, on the, kind of the conspiracy level or, I think this is happening because, it's so-and-so and this group is trying to do this and da-da-da. I mean, there's a million of them out there, and I don't want to give them, attention, whether it's a conspiracy theory or these accounts, but
all sources are not the same.
All sources are not the same, and of course, we want you to watch us and us to be your source. Local people who've been here a while, that's huge. You grew up here, I grew up here. There's some stuff that we're gonna know just because we watch these things for so many years and these patterns that we can identify and stuff like that. So choose your source wisely. If you're ever curious, we are happy to answer your questions about, hey, is this a good page to follow, or what do you think about this? So and so said, this flooding was caused by this, or the Maui wildfires were caused by this and that, and we'll give you our best advice and what we think and with the knowledge we have. But just there's a lot of garbage out there as well, which I think is kind of not a complaint, just a word of caution.
Yeah. Well, as you said, there are a lot of conspiracy theories, and I think there are a lot of questions to be asked about a lot of things. But I think you're right that you've got to be following reputable sources. And when you watch any local news station or local sources here, part of our job with these watches and warnings with the Weather Service is they issue those and we communicate those.
Yeah.
We have a branding thing, our first alert weather days, which, we use to tell you, like, hey, this day is going to be a little different than another day, like a huge temperature drop or, a huge chance of rain. So that's a first alert day, but that's not a real watch or a warning. Only the National Weather Service issues those, and then we communicate those because they're very serious things. And so sources that try to issue their own tornado watch or warning or things that are spreading around, I mean, just question that. And like Ian said, you can reach out to us too, because,
let us know. And we talk about it. I mean, it's not just one person making these decisions. Yeah. We have a weather group chat.
Yeah.
It's a pretty boring one. It's not very.
It's a pretty nerdy one.
It's a pretty nerdy, boring group chat. It's not like yours, probably. But we talk about this stuff and we say, hey, what do you think? Sometimes we question the Weather Service. Well, maybe that flood watch was a little premature, or are they going to issue one? Like we think they might. We work hand in hand with them.
Absolutely.
Like I'm not saying there's any animosity or anything like that, but
we question things too.
We question things, and we have a whole
absolutely.
newsroom where we talk about these things. What level do we think this is going to rise to? How much emphasis? How much alerting do we need to be? We never try to freak people out or anything like that.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably one of the things we do best. It's like, all right, number one rule is not to panic in any situation, any emergency. And when you plan these, these big days are coming like we had, it's like, all right, we want to get that information to you accurately, in the best tone we can without freaking anybody out. This idea that someone's going to go buy bread or milk because the storm's coming. We really don't do that here in Arizona. We want to do it in a calm fashion without panicking you.
Yes. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground.
I think we did. And I don't think we got fired today.
No, I think we did good. I think we did good. And if there's anything we forgot, also, let us know.
Just reach out to us. I mean, we're both on social media, all the places. And I'm not on Snapchat, but I'm on all the other ones.
Too old for that. I'm too old for that.
I'm too old for that.
I won't speak for you. I'm definitely too old for that.
We're on all the other ones. We're available also on our Facebook group, the AZ Family First Alert Facebook group. People ask questions on there a lot too. And we love to be on there too. So
that's good. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us for Sonoran Stuff.